Hi there, Damien here, public speaking and performance coach, bringing you public speaking tips to help you overcome public speaking anxiety and nerves. Today in this video, what I want to talk about is this idea of the inner critic. Now, if you suffer from public speaking anxiety, nerves or fear, you will be more than aware of the inner critic and what I'm referring to. The inner critic is essentially a voice that arises as soon as we've been asked to do something challenging, such as speak or perform in public. The inner critic is a combination of many of the messages that we've heard, maybe as a child or from society, which can result in a barrage of negative criticism in our head. The inner critic seems like it is with us at times as soon as we open our eyes in the morning, all through the day, and until we go to bed. The inner critic can arise in a variety of ways. We may be just sitting there and all of a sudden we start thinking, I don't know if I can do this. What if I mess up? What if this goes wrong? Now, the inner critic may take the form of the first person, I don't know if I can do this. Or it may take the form of a person speaking in the second person. You're not going to be able to do this. You're not good enough. You can't do what's being asked of you. Now, for those of us who experience the inner critic, we know that it can be very debilitating. It can be very draining to have a voice constantly criticizing and questioning our ability. The inner critic is one of the reasons that a lot of people don't like speaking in public in general. It can be very tiring dealing with negative thoughts over and over in our mind when we don't know where they come from and we don't know where to stop them. Now, some of the advice given to us when we experience these negative thoughts is to meditate or just to ignore them, and that can work. But if you have ever tried meditation, you are probably familiar with the fact that as soon as you sit and try and quieten your mind, that seems to rile up the inner critic even more, and its voice becomes louder and louder. Now, in this video, I'm going to just give you a quick tactic to deal with that inner critic, and it will lead you to be able to manage those negative thoughts and that negative voice that arises without becoming overwhelmed. The first thing you have to do when the inner critic arises is just notice it. Just bring awareness to the situation. That is all you have to do. You don't have to try and fight the voice. You don't have to try and make it stop. You don't have to try and make it go away. Just notice. And as you notice, become curious at the inner critic and what it's actually saying. Now, essentially, the inner critic can be called an inner child, or it can be called a scared ego. It doesn't really matter what we refer to it as, but what is important is the fact that we know that a part of ourselves is trying to express something, albeit in a negative way. So instead of just berating this voice and telling it to shut up and telling it to go away, which makes this inner child, this inner ego, feel more anxious and feel like it has to voice itself even more, we're just going to notice it. We're just going to give it the attention it needs. Now, this may feel frightening for some of us whose inner critic voice can be quite strong. We may be thinking, but if I just let the inner critic run wild, isn't it going to overtake me? Aren't these thoughts going to just get worse and worse? But ironically, the opposite happens once we bring attention and awareness to our inner voice. We're able to learn and understand our patterns of thinking and our internal thought process. We are able to understand why when certain things arise, such as a public speaking event, we automatically go into some sort of mental autopilot and begin to have these negative thoughts. These thoughts don't come from nowhere. They come from years and years of hearing messages from society and then internalizing them. And it is only by noticing these messages and the patterns of our thinking that we can begin to break them. So what I want you to do is when that voice arises, you're not good enough, you're going to mess up, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to go wrong. Just gently stop and notice, as if you were listening to a scared child. Don't judge it, don't try and make it go away, don't say that this is good or it's bad. Just notice. And then you'll begin to see why and when these thoughts are beginning to arise. Once you begin to identify patterns, that you are very, very clearly on the path to breaking these patterns. So give that a try. Notice the thoughts, notice the patterns of thinking, and just bring awareness to it. Just stop and listen to what the inner critic is saying. What it is really calling out for is attention. Okay, so try that. Please let me know how you get on in the comments. Please like and subscribe this video if you found it useful. It really helps. And stay tuned for some more tips. Take care.